Increased construction costs for capital improvement plans also are driving up our costs significantly. Over the last year, construction costs for government projects have gone up by 10% over the past year alone. So as we do reconstruction of our well site or a reservoir site, or we have to replace water lines, those costs are escalating rapidly. And then the last area of water rate pressure is the raw water itself. The commodity that we have to buy is rising very rapidly due to hydrological issues in the region. So I'll go into these a little bit more detail. North Water Treatment Plant is our single largest water production facility. It's located in the north part of Gilbert. It's a 45 million gallons per day plant. That's more than half of our current population. It also serves the vast majority of our economic drivers in Gilbert, the Heritage District, the Gateway Employment Corridor, and the Banner Gateway Medical Service. You can see that's its main service area. Pretty much everywhere from Germain Road North is served by that North Water Treatment Plant. We did an assessment of the plant about 2 years ago, and we discovered that this plant was in need of significant upkeep and reconstruction just to get it to a place where we're comfortable that it's not going to have dramatic large failures due to some of the quality that the plant has seen, as well as some just aging of that facility. As we looked at the cost to just bring it up to good operating standards, and as well as an additional treatment train that we had to put onto the facility because of the incoming water quality from the watershed in the state is changing significantly since it was designed over 30 years ago. You all are familiar with the forest fires that we've had in Arizona. Those forest fires are on the watershed that sends water to this facility, and sediment and ash and organics in that water were not planned for when it was designed 30 years ago. And so we need to add an additional treatment facility on the end of this plant. Those two the combination of needing to add new treatment facilities as well as needing to do a bunch of construction to make it operable led us to a cost-benefit analysis of doing all of that work and having a 30-year-old plant, or reconstructing the facility and at a similar cost and having a new facility. And so the council weighed those decisions and decided to go ahead and reconstruct the facility. So that is the significant capital project that is beginning and is going to continue on for the next several years in order to continue the level of service and the water quality that you all have grown accustomed to in Gilbert. Some pictures of that facility condition when we were able to take it down, completely dry it out, and get in and look at the facility a few years ago. We discovered some pretty significant problems that need to be dealt with. And you can see when you have large concrete structures that are supposed to hold water and you can see 1/4-inch gaps in them, you know you've got some significant problems there. And so all of these went into that tough decision by council to reconstruct that facility. We've got a lot of other assets in the ground that we have to maintain, and we do this on a regular basis. We've got almost over 14,000 hydrants, fire hydrants in the ground, 36,000 valves in the ground, and almost 1,500 miles of water mains. All of those things need to be maintained in order to deliver water service for you and to make sure that we have adequate fire service. One of the questions that sometimes comes up is, what if we just do a little bit less of these things in order to keep the cost down? Everybody wants the fire hydrant in front of their house to work when they need it. We can't pick and choose which ones break and when they break, so we check them all on a routine basis. And that is good asset management, it's good stewardship, It's good for you, the homeowner. It's good for you, the business owner, to make sure that you have that reliable service. And then I mentioned the rapidly rising water cost. And you could make the assumption that that cost can be spread among more customers, which is true. However, this graph depicts what percentage of the utility's operating budget is absorbed by just buying the water. And you can see that over the last decade, that has risen from about 12% to above 20% of the operating budget. So we're taking a larger and larger chunk out of that pie just to buy the commodity. So what does all that mean? Well, it means that our costs are going up at the same time that our revenues have maintained over the last 5 years, because we haven't had an increase in the water revenue since 2018. This graph, and I'm going to try to orient you to this because I'm going to show you this similar graph for the environmental services utility. This graph shows 3 things. The yellow line that is mostly horizontal is our council financial policy of the minimum fund balance that we have to have on hand at the end of the fiscal year. And that is for things like inter-year cash flow. Our revenue doesn't come in at an equal basis throughout the year, and our expenditures don't go out at an even basis throughout the year. So we need to be able to have some operability within there. We also need to have cash on hand to pay the debt service that we're going to take out for all of any of these capital projects. And then we have to maintain some cash on hand for a minimum amount of time, just based on accounting, financials, and good budgeting. So that's a council policy to have that minimum fund balance. The orange bar is our actual fund balance and projected fund balance going forward if we do nothing, if we do not change rates on the rate schedule. And you can see that by the end of this upcoming fiscal year, we go below that minimum fund balance, and within a couple of years, we go below 0. And then the blue bars represent what happens to our fund balance projections under the proposed rate structure. And so you can see that there's a little bit of an increase, and then it decreases at the end of a 5-year planning period. We're right at that minimum fund balance. So we don't kind of go year by year. We try to make a nice longer term, midterm 5-year planning projection so that we're not jerking the rates up and down every year to meet our capital needs. Okay, so brass tacks. What does this actually mean as far as the rates? So we have 2 different rates that are charged on your monthly fee. It's the meter base fee, which is a flat fee based on the size of the meter that you have at your location. So we start with that 3/4 inch meter, and then all of the rest of the meter base fees are just scaled up according to the capacity of that meter in comparison to that 3/4 inch base meter. We use that 3/4 inch because that's what 90% of our customers have out in the field. So currently that's $16.30, projected or proposed to go up to $21.13, so a little bit less than $5 a month. For most of our commercial customers, you have between 3/4 and 2-inch meters. If you have your utility bill or you know what meter size you have, you can see that here. If not, if you don't know, we can actually look that up. We have staff here in the room at the end of the presentation. We can look up your utility account and give you a good projection of what will happen with your bill. The other component of that monthly water bill is the volumetric rate. We have this split out into a couple of different customer classes. So we've got residential tiers, and those are what's called an inclining block rate. So the more water you use, the higher that water rate cost is. So we bill in 1,000-gallon increments, and so you can see that residential 0 to 8 tier is for every 1,000 gallons. The current rate is $1.20, going to move up to $1.42. And then if you use more than 8,000, then you move into the 9 to 20 tier, and you're charged a little bit more per 1,000 gallons. For our non-residential customers, we have 2 rates. We've got a domestic rate, so that's for water that is used inside a facility. Almost all of our non-residential customers have at least 2 meters, a domestic and a landscape meter. So that domestic water is billed at one rate, currently $1.60, going up to $2.14 per 1,000 gallons, and then a landscape rate. So that's water that's consumed outside. That resource is lost to us, we have to replace it. So there's a higher cost to that rate, going from $2.06 up to $2.78. And then the last rate that we have is for hydrant uses. These are typically one-time users doing mass grading for development or dust control for a construction project. Has a very high impact on our system, and so that rate is much higher than our other rates as well. So what does this all mean as far as a monthly bill? It's pretty much impossible for us to do what an average non-residential customer their water service is, because like I mentioned earlier, anywhere from 3/4 inch typically to 2-inch meters. Some customers have 3, 4, 6-inch meters. And then the water use within our customer base is very different. If you are if you're a small business, probably very low water use. If you're a large industrial user, maybe a lot higher water use. So we've got a bunch of different examples here. The top 3 are 2-inch water meters, and they're landscape water uses. So the rate is charged at the landscape rate, and then 3 different uses of water in a month: 500,000 gallons, 250,000, or 100,000 gallons. And you can see the commensurate differences there. And then the bottom 2 are domestic, so those indoor water uses, lots of water use, 50,000, 25,000 gallons a month, much more typical of a domestic water use. And you can see the cost impact. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears into environmental services, and then at the end we'll be able to come back to any questions that we might have about the water. We also have rate pressures on our environmental services. One of the key areas is the volatility in the recycling market. The market has gone from an area where we used to be able to sell the recyclable materials to a recycler at a profit for offsetting the trash services within that utility, to now it is at best cost zero, and in most cases it costs us to have someone take those recyclable materials off our hands. So we've lost revenue, not from our customers, but from the business practices itself. And so we have to make up that revenue within the utility. We've had an increased volume, especially since COVID, as well as the cost, the tipping fees. Those are the cost for us to dispose of material at the landfill per ton. That cost has risen. And then it has been quite a while since we've had a rate increase in this utility. Some one-time costs that were not built into the previous rate projections that have eaten away at that fund balance. Just a couple of quick things on the environmental services. In November of 2018, we had that residential environmental services rate decrease. It's important for a moment, since we're talking with our non-residential customers, that we have a residential environmental services fund, which is completely separate from our commercial environmental services fund. So any impacts, any costs on the residential side are separate from our non-residential customers. So they are also, even though they're all trash recycle service, they're separate business units. But when we did that residential rate decrease, almost immediately, like before the ink was dry on the council signature, we started to see that volatility in the recycling market. And we went back to council in October of the next year and recommended that we implement a recycling fee to kind of offset some of those costs. We didn't do it. Council told us to sharpen our pencils, find some more cost-cutting measures. We came back in April of 2020 and again recommended that recycling fee, but also recommended that we do some piloting of some changes within the recycling program to offset some of our costs. They said, yep, go do the pilot. We're not going to do the fee. So we did that pilot in the summer of October of 2020. And that pilot was fairly successful in reducing some of our costs. And so we actually implemented that to all of Gilbert in September of this past year in order to kind of reduce some of those recycling costs. In the meantime, we recognized that it probably wasn't going to be enough. And so we recommended to council in February of this last year, we got to do something. And they said, yes, go do a rate study, figure this out, but we're going to hold this off as long as possible. And in April of this past year, council allocated CARES Act funding from the federal government, some funds from the federal government, to these two funds, Environmental Services Residential and Commercial, in order to get some benefit out to our customers and to support the existing rates as long as possible. And they said, you can do it in the spring, but let's try to hold it off as long as we can. And so now we are at the point where we went to council in December, and they've started kind of the statutorily required rate process, where they acknowledge that we have the intent to increase rates, and they set the hearing date for February with a proposed effective date of April. So we've taken several years trying to sharpen our pencils, trying to reduce our costs as much as we can in order to stave off these rate increases. And now the time has come. What does that look like on that graph? Similar graph that I just showed you with water, but with the environmental services, except that you see that orange bar goes below minimum fund balance at the end of fiscal year 22, which for us is the end of June of this year. If we do nothing, we go below minimum fund balance. And so that's why we need to get these rates in by April, so that you can see that difference. We get at least 3 months of additional revenue to hold us at minimum fund balance. And again, at the end of the 5-year plan, we are projected to be even based on what we knew in the spring of this last year when we started that rate study. Okay, this is not as easy as water. There's a whole fleet of different services and service levels that you might have as a non-residential customer. So you can see our current rates at the top of this matrix and our proposed rates below, with different size containers that you would have serviced at least once a week and as many times as once per day under that schedule. So a typical non-residential customer might have a 3 or a 4 yard container out at their facility. If it's serviced once a week, it's $73.20 currently, going up to $83.20 for that first container. I'll give you a chance. I don't know if you happen to know what you have. If you do, I mean, good, God bless you, but there's a lot of services here. This is for the first container on site. Some of our customers have a second container or multiple containers on site. And so we have a matrix for that second container. Costs us a little bit less because all we got to do is move from here over to here and dump it. So a little bit less cost, which is reflected in that extra container rate. We also have another service called our roll-off service. That's these big, long dumpsters, typically for a large construction or demolition or landscaping project. We're going to add a delivery fee because there is a cost for us to deliver that container on site. And then there's still no removal fee. The only fee we'll have is when we haul it away and take it to the landfill. And you can see the change in that rate going up by about $20 for that haul of that roll-off. And then, as I mentioned earlier, at the very bottom, the disposal fee, that tipping fee, is going up. That's just straight pass through. It's going to be $31.50. Well, it actually is. It already went up on us on January 1st. And so that's a pass-through fee per tonnage. And then some of our customers have manure or compactors on site, and that's a lot heavier, and it requires a little bit different level of service from us. And so instead of all the rest of our customers subsidizing those small amount of customers, we're adding this different rate for manure collection or compacted fees. For some of our non-residential customers, currently we already have that cardboard collection rate on the books. Council has approved it many years ago. But while we were getting a cost benefit for the fund when the recycling market was good, we didn't charge that to our customers because it just wasn't right. And so the change will be that now that we're not getting that cost benefit from it, we're going to start actually enforcing that cardboard collection fee. So as our non-residential customers, you've got a variety of service levels. If you go to our website, gilbertaz.gov/utility rates, and hit that orange bar there that says utility bill calculator, you can actually plug in your existing service level, if that's your meter size and your water use. And if you are a trash customer of ours, you can plug in what type of trash bin you have and how often you use it, and it'll calculate that new rate for you. It'll show you your existing bill and your new projected bill on that website. So it's very handy. For those of you in the room, we've got staff in here that can both look up your utility bill as well as plug it in on that utility calculator for you. So a couple of next steps. We've gone out. You probably, no doubt, are here because you got that flyer that we mailed out to you that told you about these meetings, as well as the hearing at council. So February 22nd is the council hearing. That's at their normal council regularly scheduled meeting. If folks would like to go to the council meeting, it will be a hearing item. You can share your thoughts. You can also email them in. We share with council the major themes that we have heard from our customers. If council adopts those rates, they will be effective on April 1st. So with that, for our folks online, you can email us your questions. We'll get back to you within the next week. You can check out the FAQs and the bill calculator. And of course, we recognize that increasing water rates have an impact. And water is the one place, your water use is the one place where you can affect what that impact is to your bill. And so our water conservation staff are here in the room. They would love to help you. You can go to our website, gilbertaz.gov/water, and schedule an appointment with them. They can come out free of charge, help you, see if there's any ways that you can be more efficient with your water use and help mitigate some of those impacts. With that, we're going to sign off with the streaming portion of this meeting, and we'll do some Q&A in the room for the folks here. Any questions? Yeah, go for it.